Hi, I'm Jeremy Jude, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. And today I'd like to perform a song for you that I wrote regarding my journey. But before I do, I want to talk to you just a little bit about what I've found. The scariest thing I've had to do is, I guess, be vulnerable with the world and just say, look at me, world. I mess up. Look at me. I don't always look great. I woke up the other morning and I just heard this melody in my head. And it's just this song about, I guess, how beautiful life can be if we just allow ourselves to admit that we're imperfect, and if we stop striving to do things to earn love. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this song from the bottom of my heart. Is the mic gonna be in the shot?
No, you're good.
You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. We can just another take. We can do another take.
We can't do another take because I already messed it up, and if I mess it up once, I'm gonna mess it up again and again, and I'm just...
Okay, we can just do it again.
It's not that easy. Oh, let's just edit, let's just re-edit, even though I keep it up.
No, look, you just do it until you...
You just do it till you... Shut the up.
Self-oriented perfectionism refers to setting unrealistic standards for oneself and focusing excessively on one's perceived flaws. On the flip side, this type of perfectionism is also associated with benefits such as high self-esteem and the ability to problem solve. Next, other-oriented perfectionism refers to a form of perfectionism that individuals project onto others. These perfectionists are often overly critical of others and risk damaging relationships inside and outside of the office. Other-oriented perfectionism can also be a positive, however, in that those who fall into this category often believe that others are capable of success and aren't afraid to push them to achieve just that. Lastly, self-prescribed perfectionists believe that others have perfectionist expectations directed at them and are thus largely motivated by the fear of disappointing others. This, however, makes them detail-oriented, and people often view them as strong role models.
It can be measured in multiple ways. One of the most common ones is the multidimensional perfectionism scale. It's 45 items. It was created in 1990 by Dr. Frost, and it tests the following scales: concern over making mistakes, high personal standards, perception of high parental expectations, perception of high parental criticism, doubting the quality of one's actions, and a preference for order and organization. Another scale is Almost Perfect Scale Revised, which identifies if a person is a perfectionist or not, or if it's maladaptive behavior, if they are.
We've already well documented that there are various issues and negative effects that come along with perfectionism. However, scientific research truly backs this up. In fact, perfectionism in clinical populations has been linked to much more serious outcomes. These include, but aren't limited to, depression, eating disorders, and even suicide. The trait also is linked to various ailments that include, but again are not limited to, migraines, chronic pain, and asthma. We've already mentioned that perfectionism can kill, and while you may have thought we were exaggerating a little bit, we have research that actually backs this up. In a 2007 study, researchers conducted interviews with friends and family members of people who had recently killed themselves. And without any prompting, more than half of the deceived were described as perfectionists by their loved ones. In a separate study of parents of 33 boys and young men who had committed suicide, more than 70% of these parents were said that their sons had exceedingly high demands and expectations on themselves, which are traits that are generally associated with perfectionism. Another study that examined those with exceedingly high self-expectations found that those with those expectations had a 51% increased risk of death than compared to those with lower scores. While we've laid out plenty of negative consequences, there are also some advantages to perfectionism. A study was taken from 385 patients who had type 2 diabetes for 6.5 years. Those with high perfectionism scores actually had a 26% lower risk of death than those with lower scores. These results suggest that in certain situations, perfectionism can actually have advantages. With type 2 diabetes, for example, scrupulous attention to blood sugar levels and strict adherence to dietary rules can actually have payoffs in terms of reducing disease severity, according to these researchers. And when considering self-imposed perfectionism, while it has been related to higher levels of stress in students, which in turn leads to lower levels of health, on the other hand, it served as a protective factor because it's been related to lower levels of high-risk behavior, including such things as smoking and drinking.
So I think that sometimes when I'm working in a team or a group, I'll kind of take over what everyone else has done and I'll try and make it perfect in a way. And, I kind of feel bad when I do that because I want everyone to feel included, but I also want it to meet some standards that are what I think my perfectionism is.
Me personally, in a team, I think perfectionism affects me when somebody else is a perfectionist. They seem to fixate on, like I said, one thing, and they seem to lose focus on other things that could be more important.
We couldn't complete a project for BMGT 363 without using our favorite graphic. Perfectionism relates directly to the 4 dimensions of leadership. Let's look at task-oriented leaders. Like to organize tasks and develop structures, but perfectionism will stop the process because leaders will be stressed on trying to make the perfect structure for the team. Therefore, will procrastinate and maybe avoid a task. Relation-oriented leaders focus on building relationship and developing networks. However, perfectionism will affect the dimensions due to lack of interpersonal sensitivity. Perfectionists suffer from interpersonal sensitivity because they are afraid of being left alone, or no one listening to them, or even worse, making mistakes. They really do not have a real perception of their team members' feelings or thoughts. Therefore, their response could be damaging to the development of networks. The transactional leader focuses on negotiating and building reward system that benefits their employees. Thus, perfectionism will affect this dimension due to inflexibility and low motivation. To adopt the contingent reward system, it is necessary to be flexible on providing the needed resources for the team. To increase motivation, leaders should establish SMART goals, like they should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. But if the leader suffers from low motivation and procrastination, will make it difficult to establish the SMART goals system. Thus, team may not be able to achieve their targets and leaders will fail on its performance. Transformational leaders ambition and inspire others, but a perfectionist leader will not be able to encourage anyone because they lack confidence, they worry about what others think of them, have low motivation, are stressed most of the time, and it's really hard for them to make a decision. If you want to inspire someone, you must have high motivation, worry about what is the best direction for employees, high performance, and show that nothing can stress you. Perfectionism can stop you from becoming a great leader. Therefore, leaders, make sure you always aim to use the code. You don't have to get it right, you just have to get it going.
Now that you know what perfectionism is and how it can hurt your growth as a leader, let's discuss ways that you can combat these negative traits. We're going to look at a variety of methods you can use. The first is to strike a balance. This means that quality is just as important as efficiency. When you enter into the planning stage of a project, recognize that you have a deadline, and though you want a great final product, you need to be realistic in what you can accomplish in the time you were given. Focus your effort on what is most important. Don't try to perfect things that don't need to be perfect. The second thing to remember is to make the most of mistakes. As we enter the adult world and begin to worry about careers and rent more than what to wear to Seastone, we will make a lot of mistakes. Everyone does, and you messing up actually means that you are joining the other 4.4 billion members of the society who feel the same way. Mistakes aren't the end of the world because you can learn from them. So next time you think you've just damaged your entire future with an imperfect result, use that mistake to make your next move even better. The next idea is hard for a lot of people to grasp, and that's to realize perfect isn't always better. That sounds crazy, right? Who wouldn't want to be perfect? But in reality, being too perfect can be superficial. There is no growth and no discovery on how to navigate through the world. In fact, a few rough edges can improve outcomes. A mountain range doesn't need to be smooth to be breathtaking. Once you realize that you don't have to be perfect, you just need to give it your best effort. You can move on to setting attainable goals. This means to stay within the realm of achievable. Make lists and track yourself on your work. And once you've completed your project, evaluate it. Did you meet the goals you previously set? What allowed you to meet them, or what kept you from meeting them? Evaluate yourself as well. How have you grown, and how can you grow more as a leader next time? By gaining feedback from yourself and others, such as the 360 feedback model, you're learning more about how you lead and ways to improve. These were all methods that you can use by yourself or with the help of classmates and friends. But what if you want to take your fight against perfectionism further? Cognitive behavioral coaching workshops and emotion and rational emotive therapy, or REBT, are two ways to extend your learning. The workshops help push you outside of your boundaries and learn tools and exercises on how to be a better leader by knowing more about how your mind works. REBT helps to recognize how beliefs influence your behavior and how they can trigger emotions and psychological reactions. REBT allows you to see negative behaviors, such as awfulizing your work and yourself, as you realize, hey, every time something little happens that irritates me, like getting a scuff on my shoe, I seem to blow things out of proportion and feel really upset. Once this is realized, the therapy helps to reverse these emotive behaviors.
One final approach to combating perfectionism is to employ the ABCDE method that I'll briefly describe. This could mean having to make a daunting decision that influences your department as a whole and therefore causes you stress. B refers to the beliefs involved with your decision-making process. Such beliefs could be the harmful idea that you must make the right decision, otherwise you're a failure. Identifying perfectionist ideas, such as the belief that error signifies inadequacy as a leader, is important to combating such negative thought patterns. Next, C refers to the perceived consequences of your actions. For instance, if you've been procrastinating, then recognizing that and the associated consequences, such as anxiety, is critical to building awareness and executing change. D represents disputing any beliefs that hold you back. Essentially, it's asking the question, what can you tell yourself to dispute and counter harmful, unproductive beliefs? And lastly, E means taking an effective new approach and then evaluating. This means implementing alternate effective ideas, then examining the results and how they've affected you in your decision-making process.
Thank you very much for watching our video, and we hope that in the process that you learned a thing or two from watching. If you could take one thing away from viewing this video, we hope it would be that if you believe at all that you're suffering from any aspect of perfectionism, it's okay not to be perfect, and it's also okay to seek help. You can do this. Talk to people. Talk to yourself. Know that if you're not perfect, everything's going to be okay. Thank you very much for watching.